Hey there, Mr. Reddit here. Welcome back to another episode of r/entitled Parent Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. Karen thinks she doesn't have to get a job because of her anxiety, expects us to pay her way while she does nothing. After that, entitled parent loses it and stops a woman on crutches from getting in the elevator. And after that, did you know night auditors are supposed to know everything that happens in the hotel, even when we aren't here? Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen has to pay her own rent. But that's what I have you for, Reddit boy. So please smash that like button and subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. Karen thinks she doesn't have to get a job because of her anxiety, expects us to pay her way while she does nothing. My friends and I are all moving out of our parents' houses into an apartment September 8th. There are 4 of us. The apartment is about 2 hours away from where we currently live and is near our college. We all agreed to split the cost of rent. This was months ago. We are all 19 to 20 by the way. This is how irritating my friend is. She has really bad driving anxiety and doesn't have a job. She has been sitting at home all summer doing nothing. She applied for a job at the beginning of July to a place down the street from the apartment. Her mom drove her to that interview and back. They offered her a position and gave her all the paperwork to fill out and fax it to them. She did that. Orientation was scheduled for July 20th. She called and had the place reschedule it for August 7th because she couldn't find anyone to drive her there, and she said she felt sick. She never went to August orientation and pretty much ghosted the place, so that's out. That would have been perfect for her because all she would have had to do is walk down the sidewalk. It was literally about a 5 to 10 minute walk down the street. This isn't the first job that she's done this to either. It's always the driving anxiety excuse. She has her license and has drove on the freeway many times. The rest of us have jobs. The apartment has a pool and common areas that people hang out at. She thinks she's just going to lounge at the pool all day, meet cute guys, make new friends and all that. She's really excited to move in. That's what she told another roommate. I think she just doesn't want to work. But she needs to though, because that was a part of the deal. You cover your share of rent. If she can't pay for her share of the rent, then she can't stay with us. End of story. I thought the group was on board with that. I mean, she's had all summer to find a job, and she keeps ghosting the ones that want to hire her because she has to drive to them. Pretty soon, it's going to be time to move in, and it's like, if you think you're just going to sit in the apartment all day, taking online classes and then lounge by the pool, you are sadly mistaken. The rest of the group would love to do that, but we need money to survive. We told her she's gonna have to get over her driving anxiety and find a job, or figure out a way to get money. She got mad and started yelling at us, saying we don't understand and it's not that easy to get a job. We have even tried to help her apply for jobs and she screamed, "I don't need your help, I'll figure it out myself." I know her parents aren't willing to pay for her monthly rent, and boy are they eager for her to move out, probably because she mouths off to them constantly. My one roommate thinks we should cover September's rent for her and maybe she will find a job once she's in the area. I'm not too hopeful on that. I think if she isn't working somewhere by September 1st, then she can't move in. End of story. But that's just me. According to another roommate, I'm being too harsh and unsympathetic towards her. I should be willing to give her a chance to get a job before saying she can't live with us. What would you do in this situation? Would you let her move in with you or not? Please let us know. If I were OP, I might reconsider moving in with this group of friends. Entitled parent loses it and stops a woman on crutches from getting in the elevator. So him, 20, was in Primark at the time, which is a well-known clothing outlet in the UK for people who can't afford to fork out on big clothing brands. I was wandering around the men's section on the second floor where there's a busy escalator one side of the shop and a lift on the other. As I got closer to the lifts, I heard raised voices and went over to look because I'm nosy. There was a woman in her mid-20s standing in the open lift. She had a kid in a pram with her. Let's call her Karen. In the doorway of the lift, there was an older woman around 50 who clearly had an issue with her leg and was using crutches and one of those boots they use for stuff like a broken leg. Let's call her Jane. With Jane was a younger man, maybe in his late 20s, but I'm not sure he said anything during the entire encounter. So Karen was in the lift, with her pram angled to stop Jane from getting into the lift, which is definitely big enough for more than 3 people in a pram. In a raised voice, she was telling Jane, "I'm claustrophobic. I can't have anyone in the lift with me." Jane was asking if Karen would please just let her into the very big lift so that she didn't have to wait for it to go and come back. Karen wasn't having it and just kept repeating, "I'm claustrophobic," over and over, telling Jane to use the escalator instead. Jane gestured towards her leg and her crutches and asked whether Karen did this in all lifts because there was no way she could get away with doing that every time someone got into a lift with her. When Jane started calling Karen out on this, Karen's story quickly changed to, "With everything going on, I'm worried about getting sick," she said without having a mask on to a lady who was wearing a mask whilst stood in an extremely busy shop. By this point, it would have been quicker for them to go down and send the lift back up one at a time. Karen started shouting, "How do I know you're not sick?" And Jane just responded with a very calm, "How do I know you're not sick?" So Jane yelled, "How do I know your leg is actually broken?" Weird turn, lady. By this point, there were around 10 people, including me, pretending to look through clothes racks while we all stared at what was going on. It's rude to stare, so you have to be polite when watching the drama. Finally, about 3 different staff members appeared, about 5 minutes after the commotion started, and asked the ladies to take 2 separate lift trips. They let Karen go down first because she was already in the lift. Shame. I heard Jane saying to Karen as she left and to the staff members, "This is how it's going to be for a long time. She needs to get used to it." I imagine relating to lockdown and sharing spaces again. I wish something more was done, but people kick off so much around here that you kind of just want them to get what they want and leave ASAP. Everyone went back to their shopping after the women were split up, but I remember making eye contact with a maybe 16-year-old boy who was also watching, and we just burst out laughing in the middle of the shop. Did you know night auditors are supposed to know everything that happens in the hotel, even when we aren't here? So I just had a total Karen. She walked in the front door and went to the elevator only to return a few minutes later, said she requested stayover service for today, and the only thing done in the room was the bed was made. Now remember this because it comes up later. I apologized to her and immediately checked the housekeeping stayover log. Nope, no service was requested for her room today. I relay this to her and tell her that under lockdown protocols, she has to request service when she's adamant that she did and knows someone was in her room because they also took the cash tip that she left for the housekeeper, but the housekeeper didn't do anything other than make the bed, according to her. I tell her that since she wasn't on the log for the day, there's no way housekeeping would have even gone into the room because our housekeeping managers make the boards for departures only and then check the log and handwrite the stayover rooms on the boards. She knows she only needs new towels and an extra pillow, so I go get those for her and come back. She's still pretty peeved and asks for a manager's card. I hand her the AGM's card because we always give out his card over the GM for stuff like this. We only give out the GM's card for super huge problems, and this wasn't a super huge problem in my opinion. She then said, "You don't have a general manager?" So I tell her that we do and hand her his card, which has the same info, just different names. She seems satisfied and leaves. 2 minutes later, she's calling me, screaming at me because someone was in her room. "Someone was in my room. The money I left is gone. My bedding is all over the floor, not even on the bed, and my sheets are all wrinkled, crumpled up mess, and I'm on vacation. I want to know who was in my room while I was gone. This is totally unacceptable. I can't believe you would let somebody into my room to steal from me." I asked her politely to stop screaming at me, because what good is it doing besides upsetting me and making my headache I've had for 2 days from wildfire smoke worse? I tell her to start over and tell me what apparently was stolen. She again says the money she left on the counter for the housekeeper wasn't there and no service was done to her room, but clearly someone was in the room because the money is gone. I tell her again that she wasn't on the stayover log for service for today, so there's no way housekeeping would have even gone into the room. Then it hit me. She just said the bed wasn't made. How could the bed be made when she came to the desk, but now all the bedding is on the floor when she called me 2 minutes later? Karen, your room wasn't serviced because you didn't request it, and you're yelling and screaming at me to justify your own mistake? She then starts making demands out of me. Wants to know who was in the room. Wants me to call and wake up a manager and have them come to the hotel and talk to her about this now. Wants to know why I don't know what housekeepers were working. Wants to see housekeeping boards for the day. Wants me to find a key log for her room and see what keys were used on the lock. She wouldn't stop yelling and screaming at me over something I literally had no control over. I finally started yelling back to get her to shut up long enough for me to speak so she could hear me. I told her that I am the night auditor. From 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. is when I work, and everything that happens from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. is a mystery to me, unless it was important enough to be added to the pass-on log. Housekeeping info is never in the pass, or unless there was a problem, which is rare. I told her I don't even know who our housekeepers are. I could pass all of them on the street and not even know who they are because they start coming in at 8 to 8:30 a.m., long after I've left. She's not letting up on the screaming and said that the bed is so gross and dirty looking that she doesn't even want to sleep on it. So I tell her she has two options. Wait to discuss this with management in the morning, or I can move her rooms, both of which she declined. She insisted that a manager call her right now. Tell her I can call, but they probably won't answer due to it being almost midnight at this point. That wasn't good enough for her, so the yelling continues. Now I'm beyond ticked off and tell her if she doesn't stop yelling at me over this, then I would call the police and have her removed. Oh, this set her off even more. Now you're threatening me? You are literally threatening me? I'm going to call corporate and make sure you get fired for threatening a guest. And I'm a Shiny Metal loyalty member. You can't do that to me, and I'm going to demand all my money back. I explained that I can call the police and have whoever removed if I feel they are disruptive to either myself or my guests, and that every member of the management team will back me up 110% on my decisions to call the police department for problem guests. She was yelling so loud, and our walls are pretty thin. I know someone nearby had to have heard her ranting on the phone to me. I've had her folio pulled up on my screen since the start of her chaos. She's here 2 nights, tonight being the second, so I'm pretty certain, given her loyalty status, that she assumed we resumed normal stayover service and is trying to blame me for her being dumb and forgetting to request service when it was discussed with her at check-in. The second part about her last rant was she wants her money back. Karen, you're here on points. You aren't even paying for anything. And after this, I'm making sure my boss doesn't refund you your points for disrespecting a member of the staff the way you did. Also, you might want to check with your husband about your missing tip money, because he went up to the room 5 minutes before you walked through the front door. I called my AGM and felt horrible for calling him and waking him up, and explained what Karen's demands were. He laughed about her demands and said he wasn't going to call her tonight and would be more than happy to speak with her in the morning when he comes in, and told me to not hesitate to remove her if she keeps yelling and screaming at me again. It's been an hour and a half, and I haven't heard a peep out of her, praying that I'm able to get out of here before she comes to speak with my AGM, because I'm not going to be nice to her if I see her face again. Update. I received several texts this afternoon after I awoke from my drunken slumber. Yes, I went home and drank at 7 a.m. because this lady had me in tears after this. The lady called the AGM and gave her side. Apparently what happened was she waited until 5 p.m., long after housekeeping had left for the day, to request service. And by service, all she said was she wanted the bed made. We have a PM house person who is literally only here to keep public spaces like the lobby clean, handle guest requests like bring extra towels and toiletries to rooms, and to sanitize the gym and the pool after each use. We have our pool and gym on a reservation status, so they have to be sanitized once an hour. The house person is a part of the housekeeping team, but is not trained in cleaning the rooms, let alone trained on how to do a stayover service. So when Karen came to the desk on her way out the door to attend a concert, she briefly stopped by the desk and asked the PM shift agent to have the bed made in her room. That was all. Just the bed, and said she left a cash tip. So there really was money involved. What happened was the PM desk agent tried to tell her that there was no housekeeping service available, but Karen was short with the PM agent and cut her off and said she didn't need everything, just the bed, and then left abruptly, so the PM agent tasked the house person with making the bed. Well, the house person, as I said, is not trained to make beds, and so the house person did the best they could, which really was just pulling the duvet and top sheet up to the pillows and smoothed out the duvet and made the bed look as nice as they could. House person took the tip money and left the room. So Karen assumed by asking for the bed being made, she was getting full stayover service, and when she came back to the hotel at 11:30, was upset because the only service she got was exactly what she had asked for, the bed to be made. My AGM said she was nice to him on the phone and even admitted she got a little out of line with me. A little is a big understatement. This lady had me ready to quit hospitality altogether because of her screaming. My AGM assured me I did everything correctly, even with the idle threat of calling the police since she was disrespecting me and disobeying my requests for her to speak to me normally. So that's what really went down. Waitstaff, please tell me if my parents are jerks or not. Servers, please let me know your thoughts because this is causing a lot of family strife. 4 people in the family, 1 that is in a wheelchair, 1 that uses a cane, and 2 non-disabled family members. We all go out to eat as a family a couple of times a month in fancy restaurants, chain restaurants, and local restaurants. Here's some behavior that truly bothers me about how my parents act to waitstaff. 1. My mother's tone is smarmy, and she appears to think everyone is an idiot. Example, we were out for Father's Day at a chain restaurant, and the server we had was new. My mother is very particular about her food and drink, i.e., I want my bacon crisp or I will send it back. One time I said to her, do you think anyone wants their bacon not crisp? There's no reason to point that out to a person when she's not even cooking the food. She got iced tea, but didn't feel she had enough ice or enough lemon. She asked the waiter at least 5 times, where is that extra ice and where is my lemon? The poor guy kept saying we ran out of lemon, but we're getting more and I will bring it out to you as soon as possible. He finally came out with a big cup of ice and with a whole coffee cup full of lemon slices, at which point my mother said, well, we're almost done with our meal, so I don't need it now. 2. It is difficult with a disabled person in a wheelchair dining out. First, the difficulty of where to put the wheelchair where it's out of the main path of traffic. My mother does not like that and feels we should be able to sit wherever we want to sit. If there's even the least little bit of something like sunlight shining in on someone's face or a draft, she will insist that we be moved to somewhere else of her choosing. 3. There are many people who are not comfortable with disabled people, especially those who are profoundly disabled and may not be able to speak clearly. When waitstaff takes our order, my mother insists that whoever it is come right over to my brother in his wheelchair and attempt to figure out what he is saying that he wants to eat. Example, we went to a very fancy restaurant last weekend. The waiter was a very nice man, and I was standing between my mother and father as he was taking everyone's order. As I said, my mother is very particular about her food and wanted dressing on the side for her salad. When the waiter didn't say, to her immediately after she said she wanted her dressing on the side, she said, are you paying attention? He said, ma'am, I'm writing this down. When it was time for my brother's order, he was still standing in the same place, and she said, why don't you go over there and ask him what he wants, because you're not going to be able to hear it from here. Guess what? Unless you are familiar with him and how he speaks, no one's going to be able to hear him. Instead of just telling the waiter what he wants and letting the poor waiter get on with his job, she has to basically make him stand there trying to understand my brother, and a lot of times looking very uncomfortable. I feel like the man's doing his job, and he doesn't need to be made to feel uncomfortable because of how my mother wants to act. 4. Tipping. Neither of my parents have ever worked in retail of any type, not to say any type of restaurant either. They believe 15% is a great tip no matter what. I cannot tell you the amount of arguments we get into over this. At the same fancy restaurant referenced above, our waiter got hung up trying to cash out our order. I could see him, so I knew he was waiting for some of the people in front of him to get finished. My mother says loudly, every extra minute this takes, your tip is going down. This man had been an excellent waiter. I said he is back there trying to get the ticket, and there are people in front of him who are also trying to cash out their customers. That means absolutely nothing to her. I would say 95% of the time, I add at least $5 to $10 to the tip, just because I'm so embarrassed. Not only at their cheapness, but at their general behavior. I work 2 jobs, and I understand what it's like to work for a living. I've tried to explain to them that tips are vitally important, and that when you don't tip, that's basically stealing out of your own waiter's pocket. My dad has said before, I don't really care about that. That's not my problem if the restaurant owner doesn't want to pay them. Thoughts? And I apologize to every single person who's ever waited on us. I told both my parents, if I waited on you and you acted to me like you act to everybody else, I'd throw the food in your face. Neighbor complained to the HOA about my yard. So, I have a Karen for a neighbor. She's a grumpy old jerk with a live-in son in his 40s and no other family or friends. And when I say she's a Karen, we're talking to the point that she came into my property to yell at our landscaper about a boulder he was installing on our property. Something about believing it would fall over onto more of our property. A few months after we moved in, we received a letter from the HOA saying they had received complaints and asking that we make sure we're mowing, watering, and maintaining. I chalked it up to moving into a nicer neighborhood and made an effort to mow twice a week instead of my normal ones, added a little time to the sprinklers, and figured all was good. Apparently, it was not all good, as we received another letter stating the complaints had continued and the HOA wanted to talk with us to see what the problem was. I should note, we had just moved in not that long ago and hadn't landscaped the back yet, so we were letting our dogs pee on the front at night, which led to the inevitable patches of bright green grass that grow stupid fast. Now, I'll freely admit, I don't keep my yard to the level of some of my neighbors, but it was in perfectly good shape outside some green spots in an otherwise average-looking yard, and I do my best to keep things mowed and looking decent. Turns out, Grumpy Jerk had taken real offense to this and started complaining to the HOA. The hearing ended up being mostly incoherent rambling, but the bottom line was she didn't like how our lawn looked with the green spots. While the HOA agreed this was not her business and definitely not theirs, I decided she was right and we should stop letting our dogs out in the front to pee, as I also don't like the green spots. Now I put them on the leash and let them do their business in her yard, red tree lawn. And I'm clearly not the only one, as her entire yard is now covered in pee spots and dead spots on her actual lawn, which my dogs don't step on. I'm pretty sure she's complained about everyone with a dog, and now the entire neighborhood takes their dogs to her yard. The best part? She actually does a crappy job taking care of her own lawn, weeds and crabgrass everywhere. She just waters it almost non-stop. So today I got to report her to the HOA for her yard looking like total crap. If it were any other house, there are much worse, I wouldn't care at all. But this lady wanted lawns without spots, so I'm just doing my part to enforce her rules. Edit. To everyone hating on HOAs, they're hit and miss for sure, but in this case, they didn't do anything but tell me someone complained and then told her I wasn't violating any rules and they weren't going to be involved. Also, HOAs are often surprisingly easy to take over. You just have to skip your whining about how terrible they are and do the work instead. If the HOA is that bad, talk to some neighbors, tell them you're going to run for the board and get them to vote for you. Then help others do the same. And remember what you hated about the previous board. Be forewarned, everyone finds a reason to complain. No one is willing to help out. Am I the jerk for turning a family vacation home into an Airbnb and charging my cousin to have her wedding there? Some background. My grandparents owned a 4-bedroom lake house with about an acre of land for about 25 years. Through the years, they've hosted many family events and people visited often to get a free getaway. Last year, they wanted to move into a nice old folks home that's basically a resort. To do that and finance the rest of the years, they sold their main condo and put this one up for sale. I bought it at what was a fair rate at the time. It has since gone up in value about 25% due to the recent housing surge. I just finished with some renovations and officially got it listed on Airbnb as a side hustle. This summer, I've gotten lots of requests from family to visit, and I've said no because it's being renovated. I also told them that I intend to use it as an income source, not a family vacation home. I got some pushback, but held firm. Well, now my cousin just got engaged, and they want to plan a May 2022 wedding on a specific day that has significance to them. This will end up being over Memorial Day weekend. My cousin Jean called me and asked if they could have it at the lake house since there's so much land for an outdoor wedding, and she and her fiance met there years ago. His family is friends with our family. I told her that I anticipate renting it out that weekend and that she can have first dibs for the days needed and sent her the link to reserve it. She then realized this would run her close to $6,000 plus deposits and service fees, so really like $8,000. She flipped out, saying that this is a family event and a family house, so I shouldn't charge. She then said it should be like my wedding gift. I told her, "Jean, my wedding was 3 years ago, and you got me a set of knives, which I do like. It's not really fair to say I should be giving you basically $6,000. She flipped, called me greedy and a terrible family member, and hung up. Since this, my parents, aunt, and uncle, and one sister all told me that I was being greedy as well. My brother, who helped with the renovations, is on my side 100%, and my grandparents told me they'd love to see a wedding there, but said they sold me the house with no conditions, so they won't pressure me. But I've been getting so much flack from a couple of people in my family. Edit. I'm done responding to comments now due to how many I've gotten, but to answer some common questions. In purchasing it from my grandparents, I made it clear that it would no longer be a family home and that I would be using it for an income stream. They knew this before selling. Jean and I are not close. She's one of 13 cousins on that side of the family. We are 7 years apart and we see each other probably 1 to 2 times a year at most. Part of my thinking for charging is that I don't want my place to turn into the de facto family spot. It was not cheap and I had to take out a mortgage to pay for it. For people not from the US, Memorial Day weekend is probably the most popular weekend for pool parties and lake house rentals, etc. It's literally the most valuable weekend to own a lake house. I told her I'd give her first dibs on it before opening it up to anyone, but it will easily get rented that weekend otherwise. The current price that people have called ridiculous is based off what the surrounding places of this size are going for. Since listing at that rate, it has been getting booked up super fast, and I've been encouraged to raise the rate. It is not overpriced for its market at all. What I would charge is actually less than what the average venue would charge for the amount of guests she wants. She'd be saving about 40% from what a traditional venue would charge. I would also only charge the normal rate, not the holiday rate that Airbnb told me I should, and would for anyone else. So that is effectively a 30% discount off the bat. My Karen sister demands to be my realtor. I am a real estate flipper. Early on in my career, I met up with Tina, a realtor of 25 plus years who showed me a home that I ended up not buying. We weirdly hit it off as a sort of mom/daughter vibe. She's about 30 years older than me, and I'm the same age as her daughter, and became sort of a mentor/mentee situation. Tina took me under her wing, taught me half of everything I know, found me deals, found me people to buy my fixed-up places, and basically taught me the ropes. She handles situations I'm still learning to handle, like when a foreclosure auction goes wrong. I'm definitely just starting to learn. Tina is very experienced. The problem: my younger sister, Penny, 26, female, is about to get her real estate license. We were having dinner with our dad, and our dad says to me how great it's going to be when Penny and I are working together. I gave him a confused look. Penny then piped up that once she got her license, she'd be handling all of my flips, purchases, and sales because she is family. I told her that if I was looking for my own house, sure, I would go with her. For my flips, I work with Tina exclusively because Tina had connections that I did not, such as discount flooring and other such things, and Tina got me a lot of business and sales. Cutting Tina out would basically remove at least 1/3 of my sales and end my discounts at a lot of places as friend of Tina, and I'm not willing to do that, especially in these kinds of times. Also, Tina will stop giving me real estate tips for good flip properties if she's not my realtor. Imagine how rude it would be for me to get a tip from her and then use my sister to buy the property. My sister and dad are now upset with me, and no amount of explaining can make them understand that this is a business decision, and I simply can't afford to burn this bridge. I told Tina what was going on, and Tina so very graciously offered to help mentor Penny, like she has been with me, and Penny was having none of it. Penny is so offended that I would continue to give my business to someone outside the family. I think I've done more than enough to help my sister here, but my father and sister think I'm the jerk. I feel like I might be the jerk because you are supposed to prioritize family, but then again, I feel like it's unreasonable for me to take a huge pay cut and loss of all my resources just so my sister can get sales, which again will be fewer due to Tina's clients not buying them. So, am I the jerk for not hiring my sister to replace Tina? Update. Plot twist. Working with me was not Penny's idea. Our father told her, of course I would hire her when she was out of school. We're family. Penny is a little bit naive and a little bit airheaded is the nicest word I can come up with here. I'm sorry, I love my sister, I promise. It's 1000% plausible to me that she simply just believed my father without coming to me about it. Penny then felt like I reneged on the deal to employ her when she brought it up so casually when we had dinner, as in her mind it was settled and done. She apologized, and we are both annoyed at our father, who caused this communication mess. I plan to talk with him when I'm less salty about it. Penny has said she's sorry for turning down the mentorship idea. I hadn't told Tina because I was hoping Penny would reconsider Tina's offer, and that she only said no because she was angry with me in the moment for breaking my word, but realized I had never given it in the first place, and it was all our father. I'm going to cautiously link Penny and Tina up, but I'm giving Tina a warning about Penny's potential behavior and a complete okay to cut things off if my sister behaves unacceptably. To the person that asked if my father had funded my business, no, but my late mother did. She left me and my sister a significant 25% each part of her assets, which was in the mid six figures for both of us. My dad got the rest, but he has plenty of his own already. He used to love helping us out before Mom passed, but stopped entirely when we received the inheritance from Mom because he said we didn't need any more help, which, fair enough. I've done well with my business. Penny has been smart with her share and invests in the stock market. Our dad has taught her. To everyone calling me an evil flipper, I specialize in foreclosures and homes nobody wants. Homes that can't even get renters. Homes you can't even get financing for because they're so bad. I fix them up and make them habitable homes again, when previously they are not fit for human living. If that's evil, okay. I've evilly expanded the amount of available housing.
Click this button to join as a member today, and we'll give you a shout out in our next video.
And come watch this video next. You won't believe what happens on that one.